So the Master League is arriving to Pokemon Go's Go Battle League. And if you haven't caught on already, the Master League is a pretty expensive place. You basically need to have all of your Pokemon maxed out for them to perform well, and most of the best Pokemon are legendary Pokemon. So the Stardust costs rack up pretty quickly, right? So to help you guys out, I decided to make a Master League budget guide. In this guide, I'm going to be highlighting the best cost-effective Pokemon for the Master League, and I'll also give you some simple team building tips. Now I do want to clarify this isn't the Master League Meta Simplified, even though it does a pretty good job of simplifying the meta. I do have that guide coming out later this week, so if you want to check that out, make sure to subscribe. At any rate, let's get into those budget picks. And to help guide us along, I have my Master League budget picks here. A nice graphic I made highlighting low-cost Pokemon for the Master League. Now you may be noticing two things. One, there are legendary Pokemon on this graphic, and two, the vast majority of the picks here only have one single charge move. Yeah, as far as doing Master League on a budget goes, powering up new Pokemon for the Master League costs as much, if not more, than just using Pokemon that you already have maxed out. And many of these Pokemon are really good raid attackers that you may already have maxed out in your roster. So if you are looking to do the Master League on a budget, look at the Pokemon that you already have powered up past level 35 already, and look at those ones first. Basically, the way the math breaks down is to power up a Pokemon from like level 20 all the way to level 40, that's going to cost you like 225,000 Stardust. Now, if you got the lucky trade-in, that's only 112,000 Stardust. But 112,000 Stardust, that's like the same cost to 2-move a legendary. So, like, where are we getting the budget from here, right? Now, you might think, okay, what if I got it at a weather boost? You know, like a level 35 Pokemon. Powering that up to level 40 probably isn't that bad. No, powering up to level 40, 35 to 40, that costs 88,000 Stardust, which is basically 100,000 Stardust, right? So where are we really saving Stardust, aside from using stuff that we already have powered up, but with one single charge move? So, yeah, that's the economics of the Master League. Everything is expensive. If you want to save some Stardust, use stuff that you already have maxed out. Now, as far as the highlighted picks go on this graphic, not only are the Pokemon good with just one single charge move, but they also don't really need their secondary charge move. Basically, the secondary charge move is more like a contingency thing, but they're going to be using their featured charge move like 90% of the time. For example, consider Darkrai. Darkrai is mostly going to be Dark Pulsing. The only time it really needs to use Focus Blast is if it's up against Dialga, but the only time you can use Focus Blast and land it is if Dialga has no shields. So in order to really utilize Focus Blast on Darkrai, you'd have to be up against Dialga, which, you know, your opponent only has 3 Pokemon. What are the chances of it being Dialga? And then 2, you have to be in the right like health, energy, and shield situation to actually utilize Focus Blast onto Dialga, which is also very uncommon. Probably less common than actually getting pitted up with Dialga in the first place. So when it comes to 2-moving many of these Pokemon, it's just kind of like shoring up like very specific niche scenarios for them that might not even come up. Where if you have a Pokemon like Giratina Origin Form, for example, where it has Ominous Wind and Shadow Ball, it really wants to have both of those attacks because it's got way more flexibility in its matchups. You can bait with Ominous Wind and just destroy people with Shadow Ball. You can throw Shadow Ball and close up fights with the low energy cost of Ominous Wind. So having that flexibility of those 2 moves are important for a Pokemon like Giratina. But when it comes to these Pokemon, yeah, they're mostly good with just one charge move. So some special notes about the Pokemon featured here. Garchomp here does really good with 2 charge moves. It can do really, really well with just Outrage or Earthquake, but having both is pretty huge for Garchomp. Chances are you don't have enough Garchomp candy to even max out a Garchomp to begin with, let alone 2-move it, so is this really a budget pick to begin with? But if it has both attacks, that's really big for Garchomp. But Garchomp is super functional with just one charge move too, so Garchomp makes the graphic. Then when it comes to Tyranitar here, Tyranitar can also work out with Smackdown. You can also go with Bite and Stone Edge as well, so those are some alternative avenues for the Tyranitar there. Then Rhyperior here with the Rock Wrecker. Going for the 2-move for Surf does open up a lot of doors for it. Mudslap and Rock Wrecker is basically the bread and butter. the chances of you really needing Surf and Surf making a difference is pretty low. But I'd say out of all the Pokemon here, you could skimp a little Stardust, get a Surf onto this Rhyperior as well. Then we got Swampert over yonder. Swampert, Hydro Cannon, and Earthquake. It only costs 10k Stardust to 2-move it, so out of everything featured here, you're already 2-moving Swampert if you're using it, so yeah, it just kind of breaks the mold a little bit on this graphic. And then as far as Lucario goes, I have Counter plus any. I was looking into the matchups, and if you have Power Up Punch, Shadow Ball, or Aura Sphere, it doesn't really change a whole lot for it. Lucario's main job is being able to use counter damage to take down Dialga, which is nice because, you resist the Dragon Breath damage. But beyond that, when it comes to fighting, opposing Steel type and Ground type Pokemon, yeah, any of those 3 charge moves end up working just about the same for it. So just going with one single charge move on Lucario is probably going to be fine. And Aura Sphere is also probably fine too if you don't want to get too tricky with your, raid built Lucario. Because Aura Sphere is its weakest move for PvP, but it's its best move for raiding, and it gets the job done well enough for PvP. Of course, if you do want to have the optimal Lucario, Power Up Punch and Shadow Ball is definitely the way to go. And I guess Gyarados also has only 10k dust to 2-move it, but if you want to spend the Stardust, it's probably never really going to use the second move, Outrage or Hydro Pump, but I guess it's nice to have. Only costs 10k Stardust, so that's another one you can consider. So by now you're probably already figuring out the few Pokemon that really work out in the Master League for you. How are we going to string them together into a coherent team? Well, you have to start out by picking a lead. So here is the Master League leads. This is a simple graphic I made a while back, and it still holds true to this day. I thought Rock Rocker Rhyperior might change things up. It really didn't. The 3 Daddy Max of the Master League are Togekiss, Dialga, and Giratina Origin Form. The reason why they're so good is because no Pokemon can counter all 3 of them. In fact, only Togekiss can reliably counter both Dialga and Giratina Origin Form at the same time. So these 3 picks, definitely really spicy meatballs. Now, of course, it's no secret that the Steel-type Pokemon, Melmetal, Metagross, and Heatran can beat the Togekiss and the Dialga. As far as Melmetal and Metagross goes, you want to have 2 moves on them. You need to have the Earthquake on the Metagross, and you really want to have Rock Slide and Superpower on the Melmetal, so that's why they weren't on the previous graphic, because you have to 2-move them. But they're really good because they beat Togekiss and Dialga, 2 of the biggest bads in this meta. And then you got Kyogre, just monolithic Pokemon that I'm pretty sure you guys have nearly maxed out because it's been the best water-type Pokemon forever now, right? And yeah, that guy can take care of Togekiss, and it can also take care of the Steel-type Pokemon, which is pretty nice. And then we also have Snorlax down here. Snorlax is a little bit tricky because it mostly beats Giratina Origin Form, but if you are able to land the Earthquake, you can also take out the Steel-type Pokemon and Dialga. So it's a bait-dependent Pokemon. You have to bait their shields or fake them out by just landing the Earthquake. They thought it was a Body Slam. Overall, Snorlax is a little bit tricky to incorporate on a team. So when it comes to building a good Master League team, you have to figure out which Pokemon you have can handle these 6 lead Pokemon the best. And then from there, you have to consider which Pokemon are able to counter the Pokemon that counter your lead Pokemon so you can swap to them. Now this graphic obviously isn't all-inclusive, but I do have a nice work-in-progress graphic to help us out here. Also, a quick note on Togekiss. Togekiss is really good in the Master League, crazy freaking good in the Master League. So it is a Pokemon that you can hatch. It's a baby, and you just trade it a bunch. You get the lucky trade, and then you can 2-move it when it's Togepiece. It only costs 10k Stardust, and then you can just max it out for, 112,000 Stardust. Pretty easy to go for a top-tier Master League Pokemon on a budget built from scratch. Of course, if you already have a Togekiss maxed out, then spending the dust to 2-move it would be cheaper than going through that whole rigmarole again. So this is my Master League Meta Simplified graphic. As it is right now. I am working on making this more concise and simplified for my future video, but for right now this is what we have, and this graphic basically fulfills the team building purpose, so let's just work through this here, right? So you got the basic paper, scissors, rock, lizard, Spock that I showed you before with these guys, and then we got stuff that can beat those ideas. So here you got the whole ground fighting type gang. They're able to take down the steel type Pokemon and Dialga because, hey man, Dialga may be steel dragon, but it's just another steel type Pokemon, right? So the fighting and ground type damage can handle those 2 Pokemon. And then you got Articuno here. Articuno, just like in the Ultra League, can take down Togekiss and Giratina Origin Form at the same time, which is pretty nice. Then you got Magnezone down here. Magnezone's kind of risky, but it can take down Togekiss and Kyogre, which is pretty nice. I think it's the only thing that can reliably do that. Then you got Dragonite and Gyarados up here, and they can handle Giratina Origin Form and Kyogre, which is pretty nice. Then up here, I'm kind of occluding them a little bit, but we got Darkrai, Tyranitar, and Mamoswine. Their main job is to take down Giratina Origin Form. They can do other stuff beyond that as well, but as far as like the big five go, they're mostly exclusively taking care of Giratina. This doesn't mean that they're bad though. Their neutral coverage is really nice for like hurting other stuff. So if they're able to catch Giratina, they for sure got that matchup. And then they can also get some extra energy locked and loaded to unload on other Pokemon too. So don't pass these guys up too easily. And off to the side here, I got Snorlax, Mewtwo, and Lugia. Snorlax is off to the side because he's just a tricky bait Pokemon, so I didn't want to confuse this graphic even more. So Snorlax works the way he works. If you can land the Earthquake, works even better. Mewtwo is a little bit tricky. I can't really recommend Mewtwo to people. I don't really like it that much for the Master League, but it is good. It's just not good in a straightforward kind of way. You have to like have specific shield situations and specific matchups. Then you have to have one of the 4 specific charge moves on Mewtwo to really overcome those matchups. So Mewtwo is kind of a mixed bag. I know a lot of you want to use it. If you want to use Mewtwo, I definitely recommend doing some sims on PvPoke and seeing what you can handle. Basically, using Side Strike or Shadow Ball, the 2 exclusive attacks, with either Ice Beam or Focus Blast, all of those yield relatively similar results. So mix and match however you see fit for your Mewtwo, if you want to use Mewtwo. Just make sure to learn the matchups on PvPoke. And then finally we have Lugia. And I'd have to say the meta isn't very favorable to Lugia right now, so it's really hard to recommend Lugia. But Lugia is a very powerful Pokemon. I think it's the highest stat product Pokemon in the whole game. Don't quote me on that. But the way things are right now, like the focus on Dark type, Ghost type damage, the Dragon type Pokemon in general, Steel type damage, Steel type Pokemon, it makes it really hard for Lugia to like do good. So I'd say leave Lugia on the bench right now unless you got a specific strategy in mind for it. That all aside though, this graphic's pretty good for team building. Basically pick whichever Pokemon you want to use for the lead and then cover its weaknesses. You can go for a simple rock, paper, scissors strat or maybe a paper, rock, rock type strategy. To do rock, paper, scissors, just pick whatever lead speaks to you the most. Let's say you pick Togekiss. So Togekiss has vulnerability to Kyogre and the Steel type Pokemon, so you could back it up with the Giratina. And then Giratina and Togekiss have weakness to Togekiss and to the Articuno, which are both handled by Steel type Pokemon. So that'd be a simple rock, paper, scissors way to build your team. If you wanted to go for a paper, rock, rock type strategy, you could start with Togekiss, realize that Togekiss is vulnerable to these 2 groups. So Togekiss is paper, these 2 groups are the scissors. Well, what are the rocks that smash those scissors? Well, you got Gyarados and Dragonite, and you got the whole fighting ground type club too. So going with Togekiss and either member from this group, that group, or maybe even Giratina could be a good way to spin it. As far as the groups go on this graphic that aren't like nice and sectioned out for you, I am working on a more simplified graphic for my Meta Simplified guide, so subscribe to SwagTips if you want to see that. If you want to know the exact rock, paper, scissors that's going on for like the fighting ground type group or the dark ice boys up here. That is coming in the future. And that's how you do Master League on a budget, guys. If you got any questions on this content, comment below. Let me know what's up, and I'll be happy to help you out. And if you like this content, maybe you want to see my Master League Simplified guide, well, make sure to subscribe to SwagTips. SwagTips. Brian Swag, what about my IVs? You didn't mention the IVs. Well, do I have to have perfect maxed out hundo Pokemon? Do they have to be hundos? The IVs, they're important, but they don't matter a whole heck of a lot. I am working on a list of Pokemon that like IVs more than other ones, which I hope to put out as a guide in the future for you guys. But as it currently stands, like very few Pokemon really lose a lot if they're a little slightly IV deficient. So I wouldn't worry about it too much if you got like a 14 whatever, a 13 whatever. As long as your IVs are generally good and you already have the Pokemon powered up already, then yeah, it's probably going to be fine. Magnezone here is a little risky, but it can take down Togekiss and Kyogre.